evening, everyone. My name is Mark Federanca, and I would like to welcome you to Massapequa's 4th Annual Career Night. Tonight, we will have a very special guest as our keynote speaker. I met him recently when he came in speaking to my entrepreneurship and marketing class. I really didn't know what to expect when I first met him. However, I now know that he is one of the most gracious people that I've ever met. He's an entrepreneur who helped turn 5 Towns Toyota into a multi-million-dollar business. His most recent venture is Swirls and Twirls self-serve frozen yogurt, a business he has helped amass $6 million in yearly sales. Tonight, he's going to speak to you about his personal journey to success and how you can build your own. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joe Sal.
Thank you. Good evening. Very nice to meet you all tonight. Welcome to our career night, and it's what I call Inspire for Success. I'm going to try and cram about in 30-40 minutes my life story. So if you'll bear with me and focus, just stay with me the best you can. I'd appreciate that. Ditch the cell phones, please, for a little while. I'm here volunteering, giving my time. So if you give me your undivided attention for a little while, that'd be great. I noticed down at the career night all the tables, and a suggestion, if you would, it might be a good idea that you go and visit as many of these tables as you can tonight. I don't know anybody that I've ever met who said they were going to be an astronaut, went to school to be an astronaut, and actually became an astronaut. Most of us graduate college, we end up with a job, 3 jobs, 7 jobs, and you end up in your career. It's kind of how things seem to work in life, And it's a good idea that you go and you explore these tables. A lot of folks went through a whole lot of work this evening for your benefit, and that's what tonight is all about. It's all about you. That's why everybody is here this evening. So, it's a good idea that you go and you mingle. You talk to some of these folks at the tables and learn a little bit about what it is that they do, because it'll help you. Maybe it'll help guide you as to where you may want to be in life. You're young. You guys are, what, 14, 15, 16, 17? And it seems that you have a whole lot of time in front of you before the next step in life comes, because time seems to move a little slower for you at your age. Trust me, when you get older, time moves a heck of a lot faster. But before long, you're going to be graduating college, you're going to be out in the real world, in the business world. And you need to be prepared for that. That's part of what I'm going to speak to you about this evening, is experiences, life experiences, and some of which has already taken place in your life. Things that your parents have taught you, friends have taught you, those experiences, tonight's experience, maybe some of the things that I discussed with you this evening, or that you're going to hear at the tables tonight, and tomorrow, the year after, your college experiences. Some of them good, some of them bad, but they're all experiences. And if you learn from them, even the bad ones, you can turn them into a positive thing. All right. So, Inspire for Success is really a story. It's my life story, and I I thought of this very recently. When I was here at school, I came to realize that actually I lived about 2 homes away from the school. When I was first born, I actually lived on Moore Avenue for about 4 years, right off the park. And although I didn't graduate Massapequa High School, I ended up in Lindenhurst. But I spent a whole lot of time here, and it's a great village, it's a great town. But when I grew up, things were much different back then. I was from an Italian-American family, very close-knit family. Let's see, every Sunday, every other Sunday, I spent a Sunday on Broadway in Massapequa at Grandma Rubino's house for macaroni on Sunday. And every other Sunday, I was in Brooklyn at Grandma Sal's. My Italian grandparents taught me how to be a compulsive overeater at a very young age, of course. But that's what it was back then. We were a lower middle class family. I like to say I was born with a plastic spoon in my mouth. I wouldn't have known any different. My dad was always there. My mom was always there. Loving family. Dad was always a part of my sports career. Baseball, coach football, wrestling, etc. My mom was a housewife. Back in those days, that's what women did until such time came that it was necessary for her to work, and and then she went out and got a job, and they were all hardworking folks, When we were kids, growing up, we didn't have some of the luxuries that you do. We didn't get gifts for every occasion. We got a gift for your birthday. We got a couple of gifts for Christmas. That's how it was. Now it wasn't, gee, be good in the store and mom will get you the new video game that's out, or it wasn't like that. They didn't have the money. But again, I'll say it again. We didn't know any different. We were happy. We were always playing ball in the street, organized sports in the street, or league ball, whatever it was. But as I got older, my dad, once I got to be around 12 or 13 years old, I was excited that he had asked me to go to work with him. And he was a bricklayer. He had done many things prior to that, but he was a bricklayer. And he used to do, and I'll ask, does anybody know what moonlighting is? All right, what's moonlighting? Come on, yell it out. Right. They call it moonlighting because you work your day job, okay, to try and pay all the bills. Excuse me. And in order to afford some luxuries or to continue to make ends meet, you worked in the evening or weekends in order to provide your family with some luxuries, And what he used to do was he would work his day job as a bricklayer, a union job, and then at nighttime he used to do estimates and then set up his weekend work on a Friday night. He'd load the truck on Friday night, to prepare himself, and he would work on Saturdays and or Sundays on his moonlighting job, or his side jobs, we call them. And I was finally invited, and I was thrilled. I was excited to go. To be a part of what my pop was doing was just a tremendous thing. I learned how to mix cement by hand in a wheelbarrow, and not long before I wasn't enjoying it so much anymore. It was blue collar work. It was tough work. And I did that every weekend with him. He taught me the trade. All right. And I continued doing that actually through college. I was the first in my family to actually be able to attend college and graduate college. And what I used to do is I crammed my classes Monday through Thursday so that I would have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to come home and work, actually. I'd come home and give my dad a hand, for him to make money. And of course, he paid me as a laborer, and that's how I was able to afford my, not that I bought beer at college or anything like that. But I was able to afford my books for college and such, etc. So I would fly home on a Thursday night. I'd drive home from Oneonta, and I would help him load the truck up. And on Friday, I'd be out and I'd work on Friday while he was at his union job. And I dig a 4-foot deep hole, 6-foot wide, mix a foundation for a chimney by hand. Did everything by hand. We didn't have cement mixer. We didn't have any of that stuff. So everything was manual labor. Okay. And then Sunday, I'd be on Broadway in North Massapequa. I'd fill my face with macaroni, braciole, some sausages and meatballs. I'd get on my motorcycle and I'd cruise on back to Oneonta. I'd get back to school and I would do whatever work I could do before the night was over. Went to classes Monday to Thursday. Thursday night I was back home. And that was original, and that's what I did. The things that I was learning at the time, you don't realize the things that you're absorbing as you're going through the motions. And you need to understand at your age that there are so many things that are taking place in your life. You don't recognize the things that are molding you right now into the people, the human beings, the business people that you're going to become. Because you're busy living life. You're 15, you're 16, you're loving it. Everything is just terrific. You're with your friends. That's the priority right now. But there are things that are happening around you that I wish I had what you have tonight. I wish I had somebody that could sit me down, look at me in the eyes, and say, hey, these are the things that are helping you develop. You're not seeing it. You know, you're just not seeing it. I wish I had somebody to shake me, grab me, and look me in the face and say, these are the things that are molding you. Because I would have been like a sponge. You know, had I known, I would have been more receptive to listening to what people had to tell me. Like my teachers, like my parents. Okay, you know, please don't roll your eyes. You know, it wasn't that long ago. I remember when I was 15, 16, 18 years old, I had all the answers, just like you do. You know, you think you know everything. I thought I knew everything. My children still think they know everything. Although my son's finally coming around at 23 years old, he's finally realizing that his parents might know one or two things. And trust me when I tell you, your folks know one or two things. But I wish I had that. Somebody to impress upon me that there are things that are going on around me every day, okay, that are going to make me into something, make me into a success. And by the way, I'm curious, what is your definition of success? A student. Yeah, what's success to you?
When you complete something and it works or is well.
When you complete something and it works. Sure. Yeah. I think that's a great answer. I think that when you set a goal and you achieve that goal, whatever it is, okay, whatever it is, I think that's a measure of success. And it's, you know, some people measure success by financial well-being, by money, and I guess, you know, financial success, yes, that's success. But if you decide that you're going to be a registered nurse, or you decide you're going to be an accountant, or you decide whatever it is that you're going to be, when you graduate school with that degree and you land that job and you decide that you're going to be a registered nurse and you're the best registered nurse that you can be, I consider that to be quite successful. I think that's a wonderful thing. That's a great answer, by the way. Sometimes people shout out money, and it's really not about money. Money's nice. I mean, money comes to you when you work, but it's really not all about money. So, anyway, yeah, my dad used to drag me around, and you know, I was hating it after a while. My uncles, they all did the same work, all blue-collar workers. And in looking back, okay, and reflecting back, thinking about those times now, they were great times. You know, they really were. You know, the laughs and the things that happen on the job. And, you know, you don't see that at the time, is what I'm trying to tell you. You guys you don't realize that these things are happening to you. So, I managed to graduate college, and the summer I graduated college, my dad passed away. He died at 44 years old, very young man. I still get choked up when I think about it. But this realization set in that all of a sudden I was a family leader. I had a mother, I had a younger sister, and I had a brother that all of a sudden I needed to make certain were provided for, you know. And I mean, once the initial shock had passed, you know, I started to think, well, gee, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? You know, what am I going to do to bring money into the house, you know, to help my mom keep the house, etc. And I realized that all of those weekends, my dad dragged me out to mix cement in a wheelbarrow by hand, a half a bag at a time, from 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning until nighttime, taking me out on those job estimates. I realized all of a sudden that I had knew a lot more than I really thought that I had. I had learned a whole lot from this fellow who seemed like a pretty quiet guy and not trying to talk to me about all kinds of life lessons. You know, he was pretty quiet. You know, times were a little different back then. But I all of a sudden it hit me that I know how to do brickwork. And now what I needed to do was I needed to actually land work. You know, I mean, I was 23 years old. I was this young kid with a beard, and back in the day we had afros. I remember really that was the style back then. I had a head of hair, a big red head of hair, and I put an ad in the penny saver, the local penny saver, and I started to get some phone calls. And I go down to someone's house in Massapequa or in Merrick or wherever it was, and they told me the work that they wanted, and measure everything up, and I'd go back home, and I would calculate an estimate. And I would stay up all night working on this estimate for all but maybe a $1,200 job. You know, back in the day, maybe today it might be considered a $4,000 or $5,000 job. For fear that I might make this grave error in my calculation, because you know, I needed to get the job. I didn't want to charge too much, but I had to make certain that I covered my labor costs and I didn't run into, in other words, that I was profitable, that there was going to be something that was left. Anyway, now I have the number, but now I have to go and I have to sell you on why you should do business with me. And not that 35, 40, 45-year-old man, well-established with his big dump truck, and I had my father's ratty, beat-up pickup truck. But I managed, and I sold more. And as time went on, you get more and more confident when you do things, you know. And as I sold these jobs, the work, I guess, started to snowball, you know. And I made certain that the work that I did was second to none. I did it to the best of my ability. And I made certain that those customers were completely satisfied when I left. I didn't leave a morsel of a piece of brick lying around or a blade of grass out of place. And I got referrals. And before I knew it, I had all this work happening. And what I did was, I went into the basement of my mom's house with a bunch of 2x4s and sheetrock, and I built an apartment in the basement of my mom's house so that she was able to get a tenant and rent the basement out. And that provided her with the ability to continue paying her mortgage and to sustain life in the house, you know. The point of that conversation is that I had no idea all those years the things that I was absorbing and that I was learning, you know, from my folks, my parents, my uncles, or anybody I was working with, and I had no knowledge that it was actually preparing me for that step in my life. And look, it wasn't what I wanted to do, it wasn't what I was expecting to do for a living, but it's what I needed to do, and I did. At the time, she was my girlfriend. I married my high school sweetheart, by the way. Janice moved here from Puerto Rico, and I remember the bus stop in 11th grade, and she was standing there at the bus stop, and I was like, oh my God, who is that? And you know, I had to meet her. I'll save myself from the embarrassing story about the party I was invited to and splitting my pants, which she thought was adorable, and loaned me a sweater to tie around my waist so my drawers weren't hanging out. I married my high school sweetheart, and she had said to me, Joe, your dad didn't break his back to send you to college all those years, so that you can do the same thing that he's doing for a living. You know, it's not what he wanted for you. And she was right. And although it was good money, and we were making good money, and it provided us with certain things, I mean, we paid for our own wedding, and we paid for our own wedding out of me laying brick and pouring concrete, maybe in some of your relatives' homes in the area, because I did a lot of work around here. I went and I got a job interview in Manhattan, and I ended up landing a job at One New York Plaza. That company's no longer there anymore, but that's all the way down by Battery Park. And I used to, what I had done was I had asked my manager of the department, can I work 8:30 to 4:30 so that I can get out of here and get back home? And he didn't have a problem with it. It's not important what I did there at the time, but I worked there for 2 years, and I realized that waiting in line to climb the corporate ladder didn't necessarily work for me. Okay, now I'll get back to that in a minute. You'll remind me about that, won't you?
Yeah, sure.
Please, thank you. But you know what I did when I worked there, like I had done when I did the brickwork, I worked 6 days a week, 7 days a week. When I was doing the brickwork, I worked Monday to Friday, but to me, if the job wasn't finished and I could do it on Saturday, I may as well go to work on Saturday, because if I finish a job on Saturday, I get paid. If I didn't finish it on Saturday, I went and I worked on Sunday, because I knew on Sunday when I got finished, I'd get paid. And if I finish a job on Sunday, I could start the next job on Monday, you know. I was just accustomed to doing that. Again, that's not something you're born with. You're not born with a work ethic, okay? You guys at 15, 16, you ladies, you're not born with a work ethic. Work ethic is learned, okay? It's learned. It's something that you do. When you're put in a situation and you do it, it becomes a part of you, okay? And then it becomes a way of life. It becomes a part of your personality, and that's what you do. So I didn't think much of, gee, I worked 60, 70, 80 hours this week swinging a sledgehammer and a trowel. I don't know. I just never felt like I was working too hard. You know, to me, it was always, what did I need to do to get to the next step or get to the next level in life, you know? And maybe money was going to help me get to the next level in life. You know, at least that's what was going on in my mind. So anyway, working back at Mosley, at 4:30, I'd hit the subway. I'd get to Penn Station. You know, it was about an hour and 3/4 ride each way. I'd get home. My wife would serve us whatever we could afford at the time. I wasn't making much money in the city in those days. I knew we had rice and beans and something. And I would go. I still had my father's truck. And I would blow the truck at night. Or I would do estimates. I would go out. Because I still did brickwork. So I was moonlighting. I was doing exactly what my dad was doing. I was working in the city. And yet, I was still doing brickwork on the weekends. So I would lay all my work out. Friday night, my truck would be loaded. Saturday morning, I was out of the house at 6:30, 7 a.m. I was on the job. Okay, and I would do whatever it was, a fireplace, a patio, or I was, tile work, whatever. I did that Saturdays and Sundays. I set the jobs up. So even when I was working a 9 to 5 or an 8:30 to 4:30, I was still working 60 hours a week. Okay, so that Janice and I, at some point, we'd have enough money maybe that we could buy a house. All right, so the corporate structure for me, I guess because I was doing my own work and I was accustomed to doing my own work, it's not that I couldn't conform to the 9 to 5 routine. I guess I just didn't want to. I like working for myself, okay? But I felt there was time to do something else. And a friend of mine had gotten a job in the automobile industry, in finance. His name was Bob Colello, and actually he was my next door neighbor. And I was talking to Bob, gee, what are you doing? He told me he was doing finance in this car dealership. He would get you approved on a car, and at the time we used to sell rust proofing and undercoating and fabric and paint sealant. That stuff doesn't get sold anymore, maybe some of you remember. But that's what he did, and he was doing very well at it. And I said, gee, Bob, you think you can get me an interview? And he did. He got me an interview. And the fellow that hired me gave me a packet that I needed to learn. So when I was on the train in the morning, instead of reading the paper, I was reading this material that I needed to learn. And on the way home, I would do the same thing. And of course, I continued my brickwork in between. And my training was supposed to be a 30 to a 60-month period of time. In 2 weeks, I was finished with that packet. I had it completely memorized, and I ended up with a job with my buddy in Atlantic Oldsmobile in West Iceland. Oldsmobile, I mean, they were in business then. Some of you may not even know what an Oldsmobile is, for crying out loud. But Atlantic Oldsmobile, in those days, was the #1 Oldsmobile dealership in the United States. They sold 300 Oldsmobiles a month. That's like, to put it in perspective, folks, for you younger folks, it's like 300 Toyotas a month, because Toyota's a popular car. Back in the day, Oldsmobiles were the thing. People bought General Motors and they bought Fords, okay? It was before Toyota was really anything. We're talking about the mid-'80s. So, anyway, I get this job in Atlantic Oldsmobile, and once again, my schedule was 6 days a week. My one day off at that dealership was Thursdays. I worked every Saturday and Sunday. Okay, I got off every other Sunday. So Thursday was my constant day off, and I was off every other Sunday. That was my schedule. And they were long days, and they were nights till 9 o'clock. And holidays you didn't get off because they were big sale weekends. You know, it was sacrifice. You know, it was sacrifice to make money. You know, but it worked for me. I was really an independent contractor in that dealership, which is really I won't get into that, but it worked for me. The sales aspect of it, it worked, and I enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. It was a great job. I didn't mind the hours. I worked for this fella for about 8 years. From that position, doing finance, not long after, within a year, I ended up becoming what was called a director of the finance department. And what I had done was I trained. I used to teach people to do what I did. And I would sit in a classroom like we are now with about 15 or 20 folks, and I would teach them what the finance business was all about, how to get them approved with banks, and how to sell product to customers, and eye contact, and being pleasant, etc., and the art of closing a deal. And that's what I did. I used to teach these folks how to do that. And he gave me this opportunity to overlook all of the stores. And this gentleman happened to have 12, 15 stores here on Long Island. He had stores down in Florida. And he wanted me to go down to Florida to do some of his, overlook his stores down there. And it's quite impressive for a young fella, in his 20s, to step on your boss's private jet, and be carted down. I mean, it leaves an impression on you, And it, I guess I'm a very typical red-blooded American. We want more. When you see more and you get a taste of something, I think that you want it. And I felt that, I wanted some of what he has. You see it, you feel it, and I wanted a piece of that. And I worked hard for the man. I know I earned my stripes. All along the way, even though I was making pretty good money at that time, every day, my wife would make me a Tupperware bowl of last night's leftovers, and I would take it to work every day. And I won't say never, but honest to gosh, very rarely did I buy lunch for myself. Everybody else was out buying lunch, and I always brought, And I'm certain that behind my back people had stuff to say. I'm sure I was getting poked out a little bit, but I didn't necessarily view it because I was trying to save myself the $10 as much as I really love my wife's cooking, and I'd rather eat my wife's cooking than bring a sandwich to work, or rather than buy a sandwich from a deli. Well, one day, my boss calls me up to his office, and he says to me, "Joe, I'm relocating. I'm going down to Florida. I want you to come down with me. I want you to handle the operation from down in Florida." And I said, "Gee, we just gave birth to my son, a handful of months ago. My family is here. I can't relocate. I appreciate the opportunity." And he said, "Well, all right. Well, then you'll stay up here and you'll run things with my son." And I said, "With all due respect, sir," I'll leave his name out. Your son and I aren't from the same era, and where I grew up, either, if you work for Dad's crew, then you're part of Dad's team. Son had his own crew, and I just didn't feel that there was going to be any way that I was going to be successful with the son, and I didn't want to deal with the anguish. I was good at what I did. I felt that I was better off getting another job, so I politely respectfully declined, and gave him my notice. And he said to me, "Joe, I have an idea. I have this dealership down in the Five Towns, Toyota." I said, "Yes, John, I know the store. I visited the place." He said, "Would you be interested in buying the store?" I said, "Gee, John, that's a lot of money. Who has that kind of money?" And he said to me, "Don't mess around with me, Sal. I know you bring your lunch to work every day. I know you have a few bucks saved." And I was really surprised by that. I mean, I understand. This is a big man, a very successful man. And I guess it surprised me to find out that he knew. But being an owner of a business myself, it doesn't surprise me anymore because you want to know everything that people do all the time, pretty much, So anyway, he offered me this opportunity to buy a Five-Town Toyota, and I went home to Janice, and I told her what was offered. And I said, "Honey, what do you think?" And she looked at me and she said, "Joe, do you believe that the store can work?" And I said, "Yes, I believe it's a management problem. And I truly believe that I can make that store profitable. And her response to me was, well, if you believe it can work, Joe, then I have all the confidence in you and I believe in you, then I think we should give it a shot. And I will tell you now that behind every successful man or every successful woman, there is a supporting, loving spouse, okay, a wife or a husband. That's just how it is. And with her support and her blessing, we tapped our house and took out everything that we could possibly take and scrapped everything that we could possibly scrap and sold off whatever we could and came up with as much as we can. And I actually bought into the store. My boss at the time now was my partner. That store lost, and again, I didn't come to talk to you about money, but I want to impress upon you that anything can be done. That store lost $250,000 a year. It lost $250,000 a year, while this fellow who had all these successful dealerships, this store lost money every year. And people said to me, are you crazy? You're taking your life savings, your house, and you're investing in a store that loses all that money? Well, in a year, that store made enough profits that I bought my partner out, and I owned the store by myself. And within 2 years thereafter, that store was a big winner. That store, I mean, I think that says enough. That store made a whole bunch of money on an annual basis, and I owned and operated that store for 15 years. And what I proceeded to do was pay off everything I possibly could, all my mortgages, etc., on the buildings and the properties in my house. But that store was, building that store was what it was all about. The relationships that I established in that store with the people that worked for me, what I did there was I created basically what I grew up with. I created a family of people working for me. That's what I did. I grew up with a great loving family, and I created that at Five Town Toyota. That's what I did. I made these folks feel that they were a part of something that was great, that was big. That I made them feel that my success was their success. If they helped me be successful, that they would profit in it too. The more money the company made, the more money that they would make. And I taught them how to work their pay plans, basically. You know, I gave everybody a motivated pay plan. So the harder that they worked, it benefited everyone. Okay? But in order to do that, I had to get everybody on the same page. Okay? Because I got there and everybody seemed to be in different directions. You know, it was an absentee owner store at the time. So this is what I did. I held my first Saturday morning meeting at the store, and I had this 50-foot rope. It's about a 1.5 inch thick rope. It was my dad's. I threw it in the back of my car. I brought it to the dealership, and I got there before anyone was there. And I unlocked the Toyota Land Cruiser, the biggest truck we had at the time. I put it in the middle of the parking lot. I crawled under the truck, and I tied the rope underneath the frame. And I pulled it out from the wall over there to over here. And I laid it on the ground. And I went inside, and I waited for everybody to show up. And everybody comes in the parking lot, and everybody parks. And they're looking at the truck, and they're looking at the rope, and someone will go by, and they kick the rope, and they're wondering, you know, what the heck is this? And we come in, and I bought everybody breakfast, and we casually spoke, had a few laughs. I said, come on, everybody outside with me. And reluctantly, they came outside, and I said, do me a favor, I want everybody to pick up the rope. Okay, even 80-year-old Erwin Kedover, my retired salesman, I made him pick up the rope. I said, what I'm going to ask you to do is I want everybody to grab the rope, and I want you to move the Land Cruiser for me 5 feet. Just pull the Land Cruiser for me 5 feet. And what do you suppose everybody did? What did they do? They pulled the Land Cruiser 5 feet. And how did they do that? They all pulled it in the same direction. Okay? They all pulled it in the same direction. That's how I started my relationship with my folks at Five Town Toyota. Is that, you know, when you want to accomplish something, you can't have everybody running off in different directions. It's just not going to work. Okay? And that was our first lesson at Five Town Toyota. I will tell you that I still, today, I get phone calls well, in today's world, I get text messages too. But I get text messages on my birthday, on Christmas, on Father's Day, on Thanksgiving, from my salespeople, from people who work in my service department, some of my managers, etc. Not everybody. See, but to me, that was the measure of success for me. I mean, granted, I sold the business for a whole lot of money in 2006, and I retired. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. But the reward I consistently get is I get these phone calls from folks, and they, gee, Joe, gee, boss, do you remember that time? Do you remember that time? Do you remember that time? And I left an impression on them, and I didn't realize, until afterwards, how important that is. And again, I remind you, that life is about experiences, and we don't have all the answers. You need to absorb. You need to look back and look around you, and see what's going on. You need to listen. If you're a better listener, all right, you need to be a better listener than you are a talker, because we all like to talk. Okay? When mom, dad, teacher, anybody tries to teach you something, well, gee, we know a little better for you. My kids anyway. I don't speak about my kids. They always have something to say. If you listen more, trust me, you'll absorb more, and you'll realize that there are things that are going on around you to help influence you and influence your success. Okay? So, 5-town Toyota. I felt like it was time to get out. All right. How many days a week do you suppose I worked at Toyota, even though I was the boss and I owned it? How many? Yeah, I was there all the time. Okay, maybe not the last few years. The last few years I did go on coast, everything was going. That's probably because I was getting a little fat and lazy. I was getting bored because I built it already. I like to build things, and then I like to move on. It's my makeup. I get bored after a while, so I like to do something else. But I worked 6-7 days a week. And not literally, but I say it all the time, I didn't see my son until he